Good morning, Lloyd.
Good morning, Tony, mate. How are you?
Well, we're still in lockdown, aren't we? Sort of lockdown. It's when will it ever end? It's getting a bit crazy.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Some of the boys are back at work where their jobs would allow them to. Others aren't. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm semi-retired, but I can do my job sat at a desk anyway. So
yeah, that's all right then.
Well, I've been spending a lot of time in the garden, trying to keep fit. You've been playing golf, I understand.
Yeah, I went with Gertie yesterday for a round of golf, and one of my other ex-teammates, and God, yeah, I feel it this morning. Oof, yeah. Gertie decided to take us on the hilliest golf course ever. So I think he was trying to find an advantage somewhere, knowing that I would struggle. No, I'll struggle after 9 holes. So, but yeah, it was good fun. It's good to see him anyway.
I bet you're like the walking wounded this morning, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stiff as a board, mate, I tell you. God, yeah. Certainly going to feel that for the next couple of days.
All right, this will make you smile. We've got more questions from Jeffrey, but no, he's a good chap because he does fire some stuff in. He's actually come up with a really good idea, which I ran through with you earlier on, and I'm going to send it directly to Steve because I don't think I should air this first before it goes past the chairman. But it's a very positive thing he's come up with, and I'd like him to get the credit. I'd like him to get the credit for that in due time.
We'll fire that one over. We'll fire that over to the chairman, shall we?
Yeah, we do. He has asked a really good question, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer this or not. You certainly could. Lloyd, who was the best player you ever played with, and who was the best player you ever played against?
Oh, God, put me on the spot. I remember the best player I ever played against. Best player for and best player against was a strange one. I won't rattle on too much about it, but it was the
Take your time. You tell us.
Yeah, he was at Chelsea. He was a young lad at Chelsea. I think it was like a few weeks after the Roman Abramovich, the Chelsea, the Russian guy, took over the club. Yeah. So there was players being signed left, right, and centre. And anyway, I think we played him in the reserve. We played a reserve game against Chelsea. I've been at Brentford. We played a reserve game against Chelsea. And there's a lad called, and I'm sure people will end up googling it now. His name was called Valerio De Cesare, and he was an Italian fella. And I think Chelsea had signed him from somewhere like Lazio or something. I couldn't get a kick. I couldn't get anywhere. Honestly, he was just unbelievable. He would, I'd drop short and he would nick in front. I would spin him behind and he was then sort of, denying the space. I couldn't pin him. I couldn't feel him. Every time I was trying to pin him, he would spin around in front of me. It was just embarrassing. In the end, like I said, I'd hold my hands up. I was just outclassed by just an absolute. And he was always one player that stuck in my mind that no matter what I did, no matter how I tried to change my game, he just had the answers to everything. So, yeah, strange one. He wasn't really one that many well heard of, but I'll tell you, I've still got nightmares about that one. So he's certainly the player that's certainly the best player I came up against. Playing with, I'm not quite sure, Tony, to be perfectly honest. I'm blessed to be really fortunate to play with quite, some good players that went on to play in the Premier League, to be honest. And I think the best player, the relationship I had, I know I mentioned him before, but he was a lad that went on to Reading and to Coventry and Reading, and we had a really good link-up relationship. His name was Jay Tab, and I lived with him for 2 years, so the relationship we had was really good. So I think I'll probably have to say Tabby is probably one of the best players I played with, not only because he was a good player, but the relationship we had as sort of like a striker and as a strike partner. So he was good, but really, really fortunate to play with some really top class players. But them two stick out in my mind.
But it takes a while for these to develop, doesn't it? A partnership on the pitch. It doesn't happen. Excuse me. It doesn't happen instantly. You and I were chatting the other day to Macca, and Macca was saying how his partnership with John Ufer's developing. There's a case in point there, isn't there?
Completely agree. myself and Jay at the time, we'd been together. We'd grown up through the youth teams together, so we'd really developed a partnership over sort of 6, 7, 8 years. And then, to ask the players at our level to be able to then try and create relationships in 2, 3 months, that's hard. That's really, really hard. So sometimes it clicks for players. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But yeah, certainly relationships, and knowing each other's games, their strengths as well as their weaknesses as well. It's it's a really, 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 really sort of underestimated or underrated part of team football, as it were, because as I said, especially when we're playing the teams at our level, then where the chop and change is quite frequent. You then lose those personal relationships, and as well as off the field, but as well as on it, which sometimes can be problematic. But there's certainly relationships. The longer a player plays for, then the better they get. There's no question about that.
Well, thanks again. Jeffrey always compliments you on your in-depth answers, and I must say that you do. And one or two other people have said as well about your memory pulling out the air, because we've made a point and we've said it often enough. You don't know what I'm going to ask you. You've got no idea which question's coming next. You don't know what team I'm going to talk about, which is all very, very good. But you do manage to pull the info out. But this game stuck in the mind. This next one, we're on to the games now. This was Cray Valley PM away. The end result was we lost 4-3. But why? What a game that was. Yeah,
that was. Oh God, again, that was a really tough pill to swallow, that one, because we'd started off very brightly. I think it was John who scored first, wasn't it? John who scored first.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That was a great goal. Lovely touch by Harry in the centre of the pitch. Found a lovely little pocket of space. Released John, who took his goal really, really well. Really composed. A great finish. TJ scored the second with another great goal, but I think they pulled it back to 1-1, and I think one of our midfield men lost his runner. He didn't track his runner, from what I remember watching it on the analysis system, and they equalised. We then went 2-1 up. That was a really good goal as well. Again, Baldwin switch play from the right hand side from Marshall. He changed the play over to the left. They'd swapped positions actually. And then John cut inside, and TJ makes those runs that we've spoken to TJ about, getting into the box all the time. And TJ finished off. The one bit that does stand out, well, especially for me, was that I got sent off in that game because I remember the referee. I was actually on my crutches and I wasn't allowed onto the pitch, which was strange because I was on anyway. But the referee had added two additional minutes of injury time. And we played about 4.5, and they equalised to make it 2-2. And it was like, that was the real kick in the teeth. It was, where has this come from? I think they talked about, we delayed the game, and it's like, not 2.5 minutes worth, surely. So, I then got told off by the ref. We then came back out, and Millbank scored, make it 3-2. And the last 5 minutes was just a killer for us. Cray Valley, I have to say, they are a really, really good side, side. And they were able to bring on some really good players later on in the game as well. So there were, a few fresh legs that they brought on. I remember Ryan King-Elliott, that he came on and played left wing. And he danced inside and hit one, and I think the keeper saved it, and then the guy stuck it in, and then Ryan King-Elliott did exactly the same again and managed to. And it was just a sucker punch for us, one that we didn't deserve to lose, but one that we it was a tough pill to take, to score 3 goals away from home and then not get anything out of it against a side as good as Cray Valley were. I think they were up fighting at that time for automatic promotion as well. I think they were fighting for the league.
Yeah.
So, the performance was good. I said to the boys not to feel too deflated, although it was a real kick in the gut for us. But like I said, it was a good performance, lots of positives to take out of it. Just sadly one of those days where the last 5 minutes absolutely killed us. But I think I said before, and I don't want to waffle on too much, but if we'd have held out for that victory, and again I'll whiff some butts, but if we'd have held on to that victory, we would have moved up to 6th, and that was the day. So when we're only 3 or 4 games now away from where we finished on lockdown, if we'd have managed to hold on to that result, which 9 times out of 10 you probably would do, in 87 minutes and you're 3-2 up. You would expect us to be able to see that out, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately.
No, you're right. I mean, they scored their last 2 goals in 3 minutes. It's just one of those breakaway situations, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And after that, that was thanks for that, boss. That was really good. And then we went down to we had Ramsgate at home, and this was in the league. 1-1 draw. Not a happy day for us.
Right. Well, I think that I said before about confidence and how things go, and you get yourself on a run of good results, and then sometimes one that kicks you in the teeth can just have a little bit of an effect. And I did feel that we were sort of nursing that that tough defeat into the next game against Ramsgate. Ramsgate had changed a lot around. They were near the bottom of the league at that time, but to be honest, the new manager had brought in a new load of players, and there was a few players that were coming back from injuries. And I remember Tom Chapman caused us a lot of problems that day, and especially first half. And they went 1-0 up. I think it was 1-0 up at half. At half time they were 1-0 up, and they to be fair, they performed really, really well. We didn't get out of sort of second gear, and the second half we managed to improve our work. And then Harry scored a great free kick from sort of from distance, about 30-35 yards, I think. So and then second half I felt we probably could have kicked on or should have kicked on and maybe claimed the victory. But I think it's again a tale of two halves. They performed better first half, we performed better second half. So in all reflection, probably a draw was a fair result.
Yeah, and then the next game following on from that was VCD at the Belmont. Unfortunately for us, VCD were on their game that day. We lost 1-0.
Yeah, they performed really well. We lost Tom Bryant early on. He got injured, so we had to shuffle it around, and that was the game we put Leo Mazzone. Leo Mazzone came in, Gertie dropped back to centre half, and Leo came on, and Leo was first class that day. Leo really was. I remember that being the standout positive from that game. It was. There wasn't much to report from that game. It was a lot of oomph and a lot of effort, but we really didn't. We were unable to break VCD down. I've said before they're a well-oiled machine, to be fair, VCD, and Keith gets them. They're tough to break down at times. They had a big lad, strapping lad at the back who just dealt with everything aerially. And we were up, like I say, we were unable to be as cohesive as we have been in probably the little run that we'd been on. And to be honest, I don't think we deserved much out of that game. It was a time for me to have a little chat with the boys and go, come on, right, just because we've had one kick in the teeth against Cray Valley, we're not now going to, not going to get, let all that hard work go to waste. So, a tough one to take, but as I said, probably on reflection, we probably didn't deserve much out of that VCD game.
No, it's an honest reply, which is really all you can do. You just got to accept it. I mean, when you're not at the game, it's just it.
No, yeah.
Right, a couple of questions. This one really took me by surprise when it came through. This is from Mark Wyver. He says, Mark Lloyd, can you ask? Sorry, he's addressed it to me, but it says, Lloyd, how did you end up signing for a team in Wales, and did you ever make an appearance? So where does he get that from?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. He's
really?
got that right. So I just left. Where did I leave? Christ, I can't even remember. I think it was Crawley. I'd had my groins redone, my groins operated on in later that season, and I was getting myself fit when Peter Nicholas, who was my ex-Crystal Palace coach, the previous Welsh player and international, and he, I knew him fairly well, and he asked me if I wanted to come over and play in a European game against, I can't even remember the team's name, to be honest. So strange one. I went over there for a week before, played against this team. I can't remember what they were called, some Romanian team, Vectra or something, in an InterToto Cup game. So I played in that one. They offered me a deal to stay there, but to be honest, I was more helping Nico out than anything else. So I then came back to England. So I was literally only there for a couple of weeks on a sort of non-contract basis to help Nico out. But that was a great experience. Playing in an InterToto Cup game. That's probably one of the, probably the highest, level game effectively I've played in. So it was, great experience.
What was the result?
Oh God! Now you're putting me on the spot.
Did you win? Did you win? That's all
We
I
won
want
the
to know.
game. We won the game, but I believe it was. I think it was the second leg. So I think the first leg they had won. I think the first leg they'd won 4-3, and then we won at home 3-1. So I think they went through. Was that on away goals? Have I got my math right? No. I think they won
Yeah.
something like that. They either won on away goals or they won by 1 goal. And I can't quite remember the result, but we definitely won our home tie. But I think the damage was done from the game before. But I went in that one, so I'm not going to take the blame for that. So,
oh yeah, not me, Guff.
No, exactly. Yeah, I did my bit.
And here's another one as well. I like this one. This is from a guy called Justin Jenner. Lloyd, you said the other week that there was going to be a cup game that was being held over. You were hopeful it was going to be played. Someone suggested it would be played as part of next season's pre-season friendlies. Have you got any update on that?
No update yet. The guys. Yeah, he's referring to the Kent Senior Cup semi-final that we've drawn at home against Gillingham. We've touched on it before, Tony, that we're desperate to get the game on because, well, not only does it, it's a semi-final and a competition we want to try and get into the final with, but also we know that we've drawn Gillingham at home, which could be a real money spinner for the club, effectively, if we were able to get the game on. So I said a few weeks ago that the game hasn't been cancelled. So whereas the league had obviously been null and void and other competitions have been null and void and cancelled, we haven't heard anything that says it is. So I believe when I spoke to Fran, the secretary, she said that the Kent FA are furloughed up until, I think it's another couple of weeks. What date are we on? The 10th. I think something in my mind says Kent FA are furloughed until something like the 22nd, something like that. So I think we would like to try and, I think we'd be interested to hear some news in a couple of weeks' time to see if there's been any further update, whether or not that's the higher list of their priorities to get straight, to sort out straight away. But the positive news is it's been cancelled. It's not been cancelled, should I say? And I think the idea that with only 2 ties left, our semi-final and then the final, I think it can be squeezed into some sort of schedule. Now, whether that is pre-season, whether that's very early on in the season, I think it's something that, like you said, it's not like there's another 10, 12, 15 ties to finish the competition. We've only 2 ties left, and I think that we'll be disappointed, sadly, if it wasn't. But we've got no news on it. We're just hopeful that the fact that there's no cancellation, that we'll get it played.
Right, thank you for that. Right, back to the games. Next one was at the Belmont, and we played Ramsgate in the Kent Senior Cup. We won that one 1-0.
Yeah, it was. It was. I think the weather was poor again for us. We'd acquired Kingy. We'd signed Kingy, Liam King, a couple of days before. We'd lost Liam Gillies a couple of weeks before. We'd also lost, as we know, Marcus Elliott. Marcus Elliott had moved on as well. So I saw Kingy was available, or heard Kingy was available, and he just moved to Whitstable as well. So it was kind of like a perfect match for us, really. And we were able to bring Kingy in. Sadly, he got sent off that day, but he showed enough to. He showed enough.
He did.
He showed
I was
enough.
Impressed. I must say, I was impressed. I stood with a bunch of guys, and all of them were saying, "Where did you get this lad from?"
Yeah, he's a tidy little player. He's he can score goals. He can. I think he's had a tough couple of years, if that makes sense on the football sense. So I was keen for him to come down, enjoy what we thought was going to be sort of another 10 games left of the season, whatever it were. But yeah, Kingy came in. The pitch wasn't great. I know, although I'm not trying to use those as excuses. Sadly, we knew the weather condition wasn't great. The pitch condition wasn't fantastic. And it was, being a cup game, the old cliche is just make sure your name's in the next hat. Do everything you can to get the result. So we won 1-0 up. We brought Charles on. Leo Mazone-Port sadly injured his knee, and then Charles came on. And second half, Charles scores a great little goal. we then got Kingy sent off. And one thing I remember this actually, now I'm talking about it, Kingy got sent off, and we then went to like a 4-4-1 formation, and we just made sure that what we call plug gaps, that you block passing lanes from guys in. So really their back line can have it, they can play around the thing, and we just shuffle over as a solid unit continuously and then stop the penetration of balls through the middle. And we done that really well. They did miss a great opportunity, but when you are half an hour with 10 men against their 11, you would expect them to be able to carve an opportunity or two up. I did feel that generally we actually dealt with their man overload, their man advantage reasonably well. And it was pleasing. As I said, all I asked for all the boys, make sure we get our name into the hat, and we did. And that earned us a semi-final game against Gillingham, which we've just discussed. So, that
was good. And then, as it turned out, we didn't know at the time, obviously, our last game to be played this season away at Hastings. What a cracking game! That
was it's probably one to finish off. Strangely, the one that I'm finishing off with is probably gonna. All my feelings about all these games that we've discussed previously, I think this is a perfect example of all those games we've discussed in one game, if that kind of makes sense, because we were excellent. We were really good. I know Chris Agata and his guys have performed superbly well. You know, they were top of the league at the time. They've got an identity of play, which, as I said, when we played them at the Belmont, they'd switched it. I vaguely remember talking about it. They were very direct, but I didn't feel they were going to do that on their surface, and they weren't. And they were, they were patient. They were, they turn out, they keep it, they look for rotations. And the other thing they look for, which we call in the coaching terms, like they look for triggers, and any opportunity when a certain picture develops in their game, then you see the same similar movements of players. And we'd identified certain triggers that they had, and we just made sure that we tried to null and void them by being alert to it, being aware, and the players knowing their roles and responsibilities in those scenarios. And it worked perfectly. First half, I don't think they created many opportunities. We had a couple of half chances. I think 0-0 at half time was a fair result. And second half, they just then got frustrated. The one disappointing thing from us was Kingy, we believe at the time, we thought he had a cracked rib, but he bruised his rib, we believe. So we brought Harry Stannard on. And it just maybe broke the pattern of our play up a little bit. It just, we just lost that sort of, I was trying to think of the right word to say, but, the change of we just couldn't quite do what we were doing first half. And that's no fault of Harry's, far from it. But like I said, we just lost that cohesiveness that we'd had. But we did manage to get a great goal. Ollie got one from the corner. Harry stand up with a great cross. And we felt, we're good here. They didn't have a shot on target until they actually got their penalty. That was how impressive we were against a team away from top of the league. And then they've given the most ridiculous penalty I've ever seen.
The first one, I'd go with you as a penalty. The second one, never.
It was just unbelievable. I've got the video of it. I asked Chris Agata to send it to me, and he sort of sent it to me with like a laughing emojis, because it was we were standing on the sideline, and he was just almost embarrassed to accept it. It was that bad a decision. And that got them back into the game, and their towels are up. We've said before, they've got a big crowd down there, and that lifted the crowd. And then they went on and got another penalty, which again, I wasn't quite sure about it. But it was just tough that we performed well, and really they only had 2 shots. I think they had a couple more once they got their goals, but up until sort of an hour, 65, 70 minutes. They hadn't had a shot on target, and so it was a bit of pill to swallow. And like I said, a reflection of the season is probably the reflection of that game, of how I felt in certain scenarios during the course of the sort of 6, 7, 8 months since taking over. But the good thing was, as we said, the boys came in afterwards, and we didn't know that was going to be the last game up until that point. The Hastings guys came in cheering. Which, like I said before, I've got no problem with that. But we certainly looked at it and thought, if we perform like that, then we'll be okay. We should be. We were already kind of thinking ahead to next season. So it was lots of positives to take away, but just just sometimes, like you say, just disappointing that those little things don't go your way, or that little bit of quality that another side will have that is just a tipping point to for them to get results. But I was immensely pleased with the players that night, or that afternoon, definitely.
Yeah, I was as well. I'm glad I made the journey. It's not, as I said before, it's not the easiest ground to get to. You think you're nearly there, and then you've got another half an hour to go. It's all
yeah. So the roads seem to go on forever down that way, don't they? But
I do.
big club. Well, just want to touch upon it as well, because I know that they've Chris Agata as well as sort of Tommy Warrilow, two sides fighting for the title, and one of them would have gone up. I think Chris, like I said, I think even if they'd have done it on a points per game basis, I think Hastings would have gone up. So, I'm not going to get into my feelings on the points per game system that on the null and void side of things that they've done. But as I said, there is an element of Chris going to feel a little bit hard done by. To be honest, he was I think they were top of the league for almost 90% of the season, 95% of the season, and he's he's feeling a bit of a kick in the teeth for the lad. So
Well, they're certainly geared up for promotion down there with the following that they've got. I mean, they've got a really, really strong regular following, haven't they? So they've got
they have. Yeah, they have. As I said before, I think they've flirted with the Isthmian Premier. I remember them being in the Isthmian Premier sort of 5-6 years ago, whatever it was. They even going to the Conference South as well, sort of 10 years or whatever it was. But I think they are geared up, and to be honest, with Chris at the helm, he's doing a great job. So I think they'll be one of the favourites next year, that's for sure.
Certainly will do. Talking about next year, but let's just reflect on the year just gone, because it's the end of our season. No more games to go through, but we have got a bit of a surprise for our followers who look out for these questions. Hopefully next week, may not be next week, maybe the week after, because there's quite a bit of work gone into this. So it will be something that people will find very interesting, and hopefully a bit of fun as well. So let's hope that's the way we can go forward. Just from me to you, to be honest, it's been a pleasure to have done this with you, and it's made a lot of difference to my lockdown, as it were, because it's given me something to look forward to every week, football-wise.
Yeah, I'm pleased. To be honest, Tony, I've enjoyed it immensely too. It's great to see the interaction that the supporters have followed. I think it keeps everyone up to date with, or as best as we can do, without sort of divulging too much, without sounding silly, as I'm sure they're aware. But certain things that go on behind the scenes, whether it's touching upon the great work that Richard Tennant and is doing, as well as all the the young kids that have been out doing their sponsorship stuff. Whether it's news at the ground and keeping them up to date with things. I just think it's a very good way to be able to keep in these tough times, just be able to keep the supporters in the loop, and that's important to me.
It has been important. In a nutshell, I don't want you to just choose one word, but could you just sort of summarise how your first season's gone? How do you feel?
Pleased and proud. I'll probably waffle on a bit, but I'll try not to. Pleased and proud, firstly.
Do, by all means, do.
It was trying to reflect over a season when we knew that there was going to be a lot of change, not only on the pitch but behind the scenes as well, with Steve coming in as well. So it was always going to be, a transitional period. And I use that term quite a bit, but I think it's important that we do understand that there was quite not an upheaval. That's the wrong way of saying, but it was certainly new to a few people. And then the turnover of players that we had, and we were having to continuously try and improve. Pleased and proud in one aspect, could do better in the other. I think that's another way of saying it. We've spoken, Tony, plenty of times about results that we maybe should have got, or games that we should have got results from that we played well. I think that they're all learning curves for us as a group and as a team. If we're all the bits that we've spoken about over the last few months regarding the side and the team. They all come together. So if we're talking about the results that we should do better with, we also then talk about the players are now getting experience with one another. And you know, the transitions of players, whatever it will be, the training facilities, they all kind of merge together to one scenario where we go, okay, we know we're heading in the right direction, but as I said before, it's like a quick fix. It's not going to happen overnight. And if we're with the plans that we've got going ahead, and I know Mr. Chairman will start speaking about those when he gets the opportunity. But yeah, pleased and proud of where we're heading. Not satisfied because we want to do better. There's that motivation and drive that we feel we should be doing better, but that's an inner sort of drive that you have, that you're never satisfied with what you've got and what you're doing. But to look at it and think that, you know, we were very safely in probably a mid-table position in the league, which although the league was 14th in the end, but I think a mid-table would have probably been a fair reflection. And to say that we got into a Kent Senior Cup semi-final, as well as the younger players that we've acquired and looking to help and progress, I think we're in a good place. So yeah, hopefully more to come next year.
Well, that's a positive note to finish on, buddy. More to come next year is a nice way to put it. So from me, thank you very much, everybody, for engaging with us. All the questions have been, well, sometimes quite surprising, because Lloyd and I don't interact with Lloyd before any one of these sessions. He never knows what I'm going to ask him. I'm sure you can see that by his reaction sometimes.
yeah, you do catch me off guard a few times, mate, I must admit.
But no, that's the fun of it. There's no point in me feeding you all this stuff and then going through, oh yeah, that's the question, and you've already formed the idea in your head. No, you know, puts you on the spot, but it keeps it fresh, doesn't it? So yeah, I agree.
Well, can I just say a couple more, just a couple of thank yous? I know on the video that we've got coming ahead. Yes. But again, another opportunity, because you can't say enough thank yous to the guys around the club. So all the supporters that have been, I touched upon Richard Tennant, Richard Baines, who's been helping out with the trophy, the trophies for our presentations, things. The directors, people in the bar, the stewards. Just a big thank you for everything you've done this season for us. It's been marvellous. I generally can't thank you enough. All the volunteers, all the youth coaches that have helped out, especially now as well. My phone's getting non-stop with messages regarding how we're now trying to set up for training sessions in this situation of social distancing. So everyone is just trying to pull together. I think the last big thank you I want to say is to Stephen Val Andrews at Fibertech UK for being our main sponsors this year. I went down to the ground last week, and they've supplied and financed all the decking that's around the classroom, and it looks just absolutely spot on. Gary Carter did a great job with that one, so well done for that, Gaz. But Stephen Val Andrews at Fibertech, I think they deserve a special mention for not only the finances they've helped brought in, as well as our main sponsors. So a big thank you to those guys. Yeah, well said. And their details are down on the banner underneath there. So absolutely, I stole some of my thoughts. And final word from me. Thank you very much to my son Hayden, through his company, Saxon Internet. He's been really good doing all this for us. It's taken him a lot of time, a lot of his time, personal time. So thanks very much for that. And thank you to everybody. And we'll see you again very shortly. But we've got something a little bit different coming up soon. You just watch out. It may be maybe next week, more likely to be a couple of weeks, but it'll be we'll put some posts out, won't we? We'll keep people in the loop.
Yeah, we will. Some little teasers. Yeah,
little teasers. Exactly. Lovely.
Thanks, Lloyd. Take care.
Thanks, mate. Good luck.
Bye bye.